Hey guys, welcome to Late Take MMA. Late Take because we're based in Europe, so we're always behind on majority of UFC events. Today we're gonna break down UFC 324, Gaethje versus Paddy the Baddy Pimblett, and discuss whether he's been fraud checked, whether it's the end of the hype, or this is just the beginning for Paddy. Now, before we head into it, a lot of podcasts do casual breakdowns, and this is going to be probably similar to all the casual breakdowns. But one thing that I wanted to do from the very beginning is to use more sources, more statistics, more data in order to be able to explain what happened in the fights. So not just have a casual reactions of, oh my God, Paddy got destroyed by Gaethje and it's one-sided and he shouldn't have been there and blah, blah, blah. But actually look at stats, how the fight went from just watching it completely, again, late. So I didn't know the end result and I could have stayed, I could have rewatched the fight a couple of times, which I did, which most people didn't have the luxury or time for. But again, since we are behind at all times, that's simply how it goes. Second, when it comes to stats, it's really interesting to look at how the fight went visually exactly the same as you can see it in the stats, which UFC in their website, UFC.com, and the events. You can go to past events and see that and find all that. Or does it match what was predicted? Does it match bookmakers and who was the favorite on the fight versus who won the fight? And we will go through that round by round. Then another thing that was missing from a lot of places is judges scoring comparison versus Verdict. Verdict is an app that I'm not associated with, but I've been using it for a couple of years, where you can make predictions on UFC events and choose which fighter is going to win, by what method, and gain scores. I think there are competitions of some sort, but generally you can just track. And what Verdict does is give us a summarized score of each particular round and then of the whole fight. So rather than simply getting a result 29-28 or 29-27 or 30-27 or whatever, you get a score of roughly, let's say, 28 and a half and 27 and a half, or 29 and a half and 28, or whatever the score is, summarized by each particular round. So that's pretty important to also compare and see how the public saw and scored the rounds versus how the judges perceived the score. And you can see the global rating in the app. I will share it once I go through each individual fight on the main card. So, and then we're going to get some takeaways after going through each fight like this. So very simple, straightforward setup, initial reactions and thoughts on each fight, then going simply through the stats round by round and compare it to Verdict scoring. And in the future, of course, we'll include our own predictions and get some people on board here to comment from their side and how they saw the fights. But for now, we're going to start with this simple setup. Hopefully you guys enjoy, like, and subscribe. It's coming mostly every week. As long as there's events, there's going to be some predictions where it makes sense, but at least along all the main big events. So let's get right to it. So I'm going to share a screen of where I'm looking at when it comes to the fights. And the first fight, so Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje. Going into the fight, I was pretty certain that Gaethje is going to lose. He seemed too old and he's too slow. The only thing, in quotes, the only thing he had was power and, of course, experience. So he's already been in the title fights and he won an interim title before. But Paddy the Baddy, he's had time to prepare. He looked in great shape. He may have looked a bit dry on the way in, but that's how he always looks like. He always get fat as hell and then goes back to lean and mean, and then he fights how he fights. So going into it, the odds were in favor of Paddy, and I thought that was very realistic given how he dealt with Michael Chandler, which he basically had no problems with, even while Paddy was running with the open chin, as he always does. So Chandler couldn't get to him. He took Chandler out, so I thought Gaethje is just the next in line, although it's obviously a harder thing. Plus, I'm not the biggest fans when fighters talk about retirement before they're fighting. That is really a no-go, because it also, I think it annoys a lot of fans when fighters say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna retire after a win or after a lose or whatever." Especially when it comes to, well, this is the top of the division. We're fighting for the title. The next champion who will face Topuria. So the last thing we want to hear is that the guy that's gonna fight for the title is gonna suddenly retire afterwards. So a lot of this came together. So I was quite certain, and if I had to bet, Paddy being the favorite, I would have bet for him as well. But now we're going into the fight. First round, Paddy opened with a lot of leg kicks, which I thought that was great, and they were landing. One interesting thing in the same sequence was that Gaethje wasn't throwing any kicks, and he later explained that was because he got caught with Fiziev in the fight and got taken down. So I guess that was a smart strategy. But overall, I thought the start with the leg kicks and simply attacking the legs of Gaethje was a really good move by Paddy, and that seemed to have been paying off. So at the beginning of the round, he was doing pretty well, as good as it can get, I would say. And then, of course, Paddy was running with chin wide open. That is always, it's something that bothered me watching him. I think he lost the fight against Jared Gordon 2-1. That was easy for Jared Gordon. The judges just didn't see that. But Paddy's always running with open chin, and someone has to crack it. So, and this happened to happen in this specific fight, which is not great for Paddy, but great for Gaethje. So I thought Gaethje was composed. He didn't throw leg kicks, so he wouldn't get taken down. And then he cracked him and almost got the fight stopped. Even judging from how the previous fights got stopped, especially the first two in the early preliminaries, was, I would say, both bad stoppages. But uh, the ref continued the fight, allowed him to fight it out, and Paddy got up, and you got to applaud him for that. So great effort of surviving in the first round. Second round, well, that's where things became a bit more complicated. I thought Paddy was already out of energy. He even asked his corner what hit him. Apparently, it was a body shot that took out his breath, basically. So he looked really exhausted. And it makes sense. And Gaethje looked fine, while Paddy has already damaged him. And then we got another knockdown in the round two, I believe. Yes. So those two rounds, I think they could have gone to Paddy if not for the knockdowns, but that was easy, 2-0. In my quick view on this, and we'll get to stats in a short bit. Third round, Paddy was doing great, didn't get knocked down that time, so it went well, and Gaethje seemed to have caught quite a few shots, and Paddy, rather than looping most of the shots, did some good combos in there. I thought that was clear. Third round for Paddy, and then fourth round, of course, it was give or take even, but in the end, Gaethje got him, and it's pretty. Uh, it was pretty bad round for Paddy. Fifth round, Paddy was completely damaged, exhausted. He went for broke. He did his best. That was really, really probably it's the fight of the year, but it was obvious that the fight is going to Gaethje, and Gaethje won the title. So yeah, what does that mean? Does that mean that Paddy was exposed? I wouldn't say so. I don't think he necessarily beat the hardest opponents on his way up. And sure, Bobby Green is great, and Michael Chandler is great, but they lose to a lot of people too. So I guess so. Paddy's better. That's about it. But if he's not as good as Gaethje, that's a big problem for him. Why? For some reason, he wasn't really going for the takedowns. Maybe partly is the strategy of Gaethje on not doing any leg kicks. It was very few leg kicks that he threw, and those that he threw looked like they landed really hard. So obviously, he was doing more damage even with a few leg kicks that he threw to Gaethje than to Paddy than Paddy was doing to Gaethje. So that was pretty interesting in the way it played out. No matter what he tried, he couldn't take Gaethje down. And I think even if we look at the stats again now, Gaethje got 2 takedowns where Paddy has 0. So of a guy that you would expect. Although I don't even recall what were these takedowns. If it was just front locks from Gaethje, but whatever. He used them really well and keeping him down on his weight, but we've seen nothing in that regard from Paddy. Is this the end of the hype for Paddy? I don't think so. He's still young enough. He has skills. His ground game is great. He can strike and he can do better in striking. That's for sure, because a lot of his strikes were little looping punches, which didn't get anywhere. And sometimes it was the end of the punches were just thrown like this. So that didn't get anywhere, not with his power compared to Gaethje. Gaethje can throw some looping punches because if one of them lands, you're in La La Land. So I don't think that it's the end of hype. Paddy has some things to think about. One is, how do I take down someone who doesn't leg kick? Assuming there was no injuries or of that sort that prevented Paddy from, which we didn't see any injuries, but perhaps there was something that didn't allow him to go for takedowns. And he got one good chance for a takedown in there and he couldn't do it. So perhaps Gaethje just took all the air out of him. Who knows? We'll see. What's next for Paddy in order to win the title at some point? Again, use the ground game better. Perhaps look at the diet and don't get that fat, because it's really tough to lose 20, 30, 40 pounds just for the fight. And then it's very hard for me to assume that someone can have a good training and make real life situations in training when you really way above the way that you should be. So that's pretty important for him to deal with. At least I would say so. And what's next? We'll see. Perhaps him and Dan Hooker, who's fighting later this week. Maybe that's the next fight for him or something like that. But for now, he has to go back to the drawing board. Gaethje. I think Gaethje did almost everything right. He wanted to take his head off. It's easy to say post fact, but the not throwing the leg kicks and learning from the Fizia fight when he was throwing those leg kicks and he would get taken down, and so that's pretty solid. I would say there. He still has speed, so he's not slow. His combos when needed are tight, but not too tight. So again, he uses his power really well. And the only question with Gaethje is now is, well, first of all, congrats to Justin Gaethje. He did a great job. He was the underdog going into this fight. So amazing victory, and now he's the interim champ. Does he have a chance against Topuria? Actually, both of them have any chance against Topuria? Not likely. Topuria is way more powerful than Gaethje and way more tighter in his boxing. So I think whether it's Paddy or Gaethje that would have won, it's just a matter of who will get knocked out by Topuria. It's not clear what has to happen that Topuria doesn't go after him. So if Max Holloway sent Gaethje to the space, then it's very likely that Topuria will do the same, and I wouldn't be surprised if Gaethje is finished in the second round as well. Maybe first if he goes for broke. So, and not even talking about Paddy, I don't think he would have survived at all. There's no way. So that's that's my take on this. It's been a great fight, probably contender already for the fight of the year, which nobody saw coming. I think it could have been a good fight, and it got a bit underrated because of the interim title and not the actual light heavyweight title. But hey, props to Gaethje. He's done it at this age. He still has it. I guess we'll see him and Topuria at the White House. And too bad for Arman, because Sarukian, he has no one to really fight that's worth it. So for him, it's backup for the White House and then see what happens. Now, while we're looking at this screen, we can have a look at the statistics and see how the rounds matched with the verdict rounds. So total strikes 42 versus 43. Gaethje. Takedowns, no one got any, no submissions, no reversals. Significant strikes, Gaethje, a little advantage, and then knockdown. So if you just looked at the stats, it looked like the fight was pretty even. And actually, if it wasn't for the knockdown, it may have been still at the end. It was close before the knockdown, but then afterwards it was one-way street, and the strikes that Paddy was hit with were not the same that Gaethje was hit with. So it makes sense. It's very easy, 1-0. Now, let's look at the verdict and see what the fans saw. First round, Gaethje, one-way street. Majority of the people watching agreed. So that's very obvious. Second round, well, that's from the statistics, that's one-way street. Gaethje got 2 takedowns somehow. Again, this looked like just a front. Uh, it's at the end of the round where Paddy got poked in the eye uh, and knocked down, which was a very weird situation. So I guess those 2 takedowns counted there. But basically he got smashed, and you can see that in this round quite easily. If you look at verdict score, it's even higher than the first round, of course, because he was getting battered in there. Next up, round 3. Round 3, Paddy picked up the pace, started going at Gaethje, started avoiding big shots, and finally took that round. I think that's obvious. The statistics shows that too. So even though first 2 rounds statistically seemed close, they weren't, but they seemed close. Third round, totally Paddy, one-way street, and that's the same in the verdict. So all the fans agreed with that. Round 4. Well, here this was a bit slower round. Both fighters tired, exhausted, and Gaethje already got 2 rounds in the bag. So what's left is just to see how this round went significant strike-wise. But overall, Gaethje still had the advantage, and he was starting to dominate. Any shot that Pimblett was getting hit with, it just did way more damage. So that was 3-1 at that time, and same on the verdict score is pretty close. That it's 3-1 here as well. So most people agreed with that. And round 5. Well, UFC hasn't updated the stats, so boo-hoo. So they ruined my take on this. So hard to say who won that by any strikes in round 5, because they haven't added the stats yet. But it looked like it was a closer round. I guess it could have been. I could have gone either way statistically from what I've seen, but I still think Gaethje won the round. Paddy gave his best, but Gaethje won the round, and that's also seemingly what most people agreed on. So the takeaway here is, if you look at the final score, which, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's scored in total, not in even numbers. 48.52 versus 46.25. You can round it up, down for Paddy, up for Gaethje, because that's how math works. It's 48, 47, 49, 46. Those, it's good enough, and the judges were basically. So before I get to that, most common pick was submission on in the third round by Paddy. Of course, that didn't happen, but you can see what most people picked before the fight. Now we can also see what the judges scored the rounds first, second, fourth, and fifth rounds by. They're clearly correct, and he gets them wrong way too often. Michael Bell gave fifth round to Paddy, which is all right. Saldamato, well, this time he got things right. So that's at least that's good. Now, on to the next. These we're gonna do way quicker. I must admit, Sugar Sean versus Song Yadong. Not an impressive fight. It could have gone either way. If I had to bet, I would have gone for Song Yadong, but Sean is fast, and I would say Song Yadong had more power. I think this looked way closer overall, and it could have gone either way. In my book, Song Yadong won the fight, so that's just the way I see. If we look at the stats here, round 1, Sean threw more. There was some comments where I thought it was pretty correct to say, Song Yadong got a takedown, so he gets a point there. And another thing was a lot of shots that Sean threw. It didn't look like they landed, or it actually looked like they landed, but they didn't. So it was always very close, but he's so fast. And Song Yadong had a lot of reactions to it, so it's almost always seemed like he landed, but he really didn't in most cases. So I would dispute the significant strikes in here. There's no way. It's 16 versus 10, and I guess first round went to Paddy in this case. We can check on verdict. Where does that look like? Here we go. Close round. It was really, really close. 9:45 versus 9:47. I still think Song Yadong won the round. Second round, Sean picked up. and looked better. I would still say that Zong Yadong won that round too in my book, but fair enough, in that sense. Most fans agree with me on that as well. So it's 9-1 versus 9-1. In my book, that's 2-0 Song Yadong. And then third round, Sean did pick up. He did look like he wanted to win this fight at the end. And he looked really, really good. Like he just looked like, I don't want to lose this fight. That's it. And that's basically how it went. He won the third round. It also same in the stats. And Song Yadong was bleeding. People perceived damage in there. So that's likely why the judges easily gave the round to Sean. And then somehow it's 2-1 Sean and he won the fight. Congrats. It didn't look really good. I don't know what's next for him at all. He can fight Umar, he can fight Sanhagen in the White House. He's not getting Marab, that's for sure. So we'll see, but I didn't really like his performance at all in here. As for Song Yadong, he'll build his way up. He's still young, and I still think he kind of got robbed here. Now, let's just call it the weirdest fight of the night. Derek Lewis versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. I think most people would have bet on Waldo Cortez Acosta, but the way it went down, first round, nothing really happened. You can give the round to Acosta, but that's about it. Then we can check the scores on verdict and what the fans say. Yeah, most people gave it because Derek Lewis didn't really do much of anything. He attempted some kicks, which I thought were nice, and that could have been promising, but that's about it. Now the second round was, it's even hard to say. Like, it looked like Derek Lewis just gave up. Like, I think he slipped on his way in. He wasn't really tagged hard or anything, and he didn't defend himself at all. So Acosta just smashed him and finished the fight. And that's as much as you can say there. Acosta needs to find better opponents, that's for sure. As for Derek Lewis, we're all just going to watch him and expect a knockout from him anyway. So he's just there. On to the next, Natalia Silva versus Rose Namajunas. That was a fight that I expected more from Natalia Silva, to be honest. She looked way better before. She didn't look bad this fight either, but nothing was landing. It's kind of the same as with Sean O'Malley, where it kind of looked like it was landing, but not really. Rose was awaiting a lot of shots. On Rose's side, I think honestly, she needs to find a new coach. She needs to do things differently. It's the same fight all over again, and she doesn't get those decisions. She just doesn't do enough damage for her to get the fight. That's pretty much sums it up, in my opinion. Now, as when it comes per rounds, to be honest, we can just check the verdict pretty quickly here. Mainly because I think that this was such a boring fight. Nothing really happened. Not as bad as Carl Esparza versus Namajunas, but close enough. So, according to verdict, first round Silva, I agree. I agree with that. I think she won that round. Second round, she lost somehow. So it was more obvious that Rose won the second round. So it was 1-1 going to the third. And I thought it was obvious Natalia Silva won the third round, but here we are. So the judges again, David Larrabee, 2-1 Natalia Silva, clearly 2-1 Natalia Silva, and Soldemata 2-1 Natalia Silva. So there's that. So I would say easy win for Natalia Silva, even though nothing really happened. Nothing really happened. Next up, Arnold Allen versus Jean Silva. I think that was a great fight. Without going too much into analysis on that, I think either could have gotten the decision. In the end, Jean Silva looked like he had more energy, so he took it. And Brandon Allen was eating solid shots. So props on him for surviving that. And you can see in each round, first round statistically is Brandon Allen's, but and more significant strikes. If we look at the verdict scores, we can check here as well. Brandon Allen won the first round according to the fans, and I agree there. Second round, Silva picked up, got a takedown, beat him up a little bit. So second round went to Silva, and the fans agreed there as well. And then third round, back to Silva, and he did this climbing on the back at the end of the round, which was like showboating and all that. So he literally climbed on the guy's back with his feet and jump down. So that was pretty funny. He won the round. It's very clear there, and that's what we see. So overall, really good event. I would say it's at least 9 out of 10 for Europeans. We don't have pay-per-views anyway. Only the UK guys do, and Australians, I believe. So for us, the Paramount didn't change much of anything. There was ads as usual for us during the rounds. The event, yeah, 9 out of 10. That would be fair. 8 out of 10 for sure. Not 10 out of 10. A few early stoppages on early rounds, but that's about it. Judges were all right, debatable on Mali, but hey, that's how it goes. Main event was great fight, nothing to say there. So we'll see what's next for these fighters. Thanks for tuning in. This is the summary for this week. In a couple of days, I'm going to do another review or preview of UFC 325, Volkanovski versus Lopez, and we're going to dig into predictions and see who has a higher likelihood on winning the fight. If you enjoyed this breakdown, like, subscribe, follow me on social media, comment, give your thoughts. Let's discuss this. Let's build a community here. And